So about a month ago, Shad here hit the 1,000 subs he deserves and announced a Q&A video he was going to do. As of me recording this video, he hasn't released it yet, or done it as far as I can tell, but that's up to him. But in it, one question that I posed to him popped back in my mind recently when I was finally getting some time to play Ultrakill. That question being, if I could permanently change one thing about Ultrakill, what would it be? And this wasn't exactly an easy question since Ultrakill, despite being an early access game with at least half its story still under construction, is still one of my top 5 games of all time. But then I got to thinking, and then the answer started to come to me. At first I thought maybe I'd want the stalkers gone. Their sand mechanic is kinda annoying and it can mess with your strategies. However, that was before I came across this video by Glued, where he cracked the code and found out that you can at least minimize the amount of sand they put out if you use the magnets on the nail gun and stick them to a wall or something like that. I also tried zipping them off the side of the map, but apparently they're considered a large enemy, which doesn't really make any sense to me, but oh well. But they're manageable, that's the point I'm getting at. So then I thought maybe the sand itself is what I'd want gone. It completely drying the arteries of your enemies is odd, but ultimately a good gameplay mechanic that tells you not to worry about trying to kill those fuckers up close, and instead to go deal with some other non-sandy enemies if you can. Plus, with Wrath being a sort of water layer, I have a theory that there will be some kind of, maybe a squirt gun as a new weapon, or something of that nature where it can deal with the sandy enemies. Because I really can't imagine those 2 or 3 encounters with the Stalkers in Greed, and then their spawns in Cybergrind, is the last we're gonna see of these guys. That'd be quite boring if it was. I can understand maybe excluding them from Wrath, because again, water layer, but I don't see them being excluded from the rest of the game. But in the end, I finally settled on what my permanent change would be. If I were to, you know, whisper sweet nothings into Hakita's ear, telling him to change the game in this one way, it'd be quite simple. This right here. The zoom on the railcannon in all its different versions. Why? Well, there's literally no use for it now, or anything that could otherwise function as a long-range weapon in a game where the core mechanic is blasting enemies into jibs and showering in the blood they leave behind. Maybe at a certain point in the past I could see the benefit, namely that town area in Lust or the water treatment place where the mind flare is introduced, or hell, even those eye centipede thingies in the boss fight with the corpse of Minos. Funny how all of my devil's advocates for when this zoom feature would have been useful are exclusive to the parts of the layer the railcannon is introduced in, and nowhere else. But the thing is, now that we have the wire snatch, and yes, Hakita, I know it's called the whiplash, but let's face it, a blue boy journeying through hell with a fancy revolver and an assortment of different arms to use against hell's denizens, with a red boy constantly being so far ahead of him that he can always show off before trying any form of attack. Yeah, I'm calling it the wire snatch because that rolls off the tongue a bit easier. Anyway, ever since the wire snatch was introduced, it completely invalidates any need for a scope feature on the railcannon. There's not a single situation where I'd think lining up a malicious or electric shot would be more stylish or helpful to my situation than if I pulled myself towards that enemy and then hit them point blank with the railcannon. Even my earlier examples of far-off enemies in Lust, I'd want to pull towards myself for a more stylish takedown than if I was just sniping. Or I'd try one of the many tricks with the railcannon like the Ultra Rico shot, the nuke, or a combination of the two, or something wacky like hitting a core eject with a screwdriver. It's more stylish and more likely to net me some health if needed, or I'd close that distance myself with dashing and sliding to get all up in their grill and knuckle fuck them. Those centipede thingies on Minos I'll admit you can't grapple to, but I never even attempt it, when I can just as easily ricochet them, or wait until the head comes close enough to where I can send a swarm of nails, or a power pistol shot, whatever. Ultimately, I find the zoom feature to be fluff at best. It can be a nice quality of life feature when you first gain the weapon and don't quite have the hang of it, but when most people are using it point blank, or doing the zigzag method on 3 Serbs in 3-1, or the other combos where zooming in is an unnecessary step that has the potential to mess up your combos, I can't think of a single reason to keep it in the game. So how would I improve the game with the absence of this feature? What would I suggest if you can't ADS with the railguns? Pretty easy alt-fire methods like literally every other gun. One of the first ideas I thought of was to tie the railcannon's alt-fire to the movement of the game, to make it a pretty useful tactic for speedrunners, essentially creating something like the bayonet charge from Battlefield 1, just with the different railcannon effects applied. Blue or electric would simply charge forward, tasing any enemy it hits, and being so hard and fast that it outright kills the weaker enemies it's used against. The green or screwdriver would either have the same plowing effect until it ends in launching the drill bit into a front-facing enemy, but it doesn't last quite as long as the regular fire on the screwdriver, thus giving you a conundrum of do you want something that lasts longer but you have to aim it, or something you can plow through and then just stick into the nearest one. And finally, red or malicious would have the same effect as the overpumped shotgun. It would detonate upon the first enemy it touches and dealing damage to V1, but sending him flying like a Mach 3 rocket, thus forcing the fastest reaction times to add on to the style meter, essentially making people play this game like how Mint Blitz plays Halo. That's the first idea I came up with on how to improve the rails, and it's honestly what I'd like to see the most, as it ties with the game's concept of doing cool shit for the sake of feeling like a badass. Another idea I came up with was giving it something similar to the mirror thingies that Crosshair uses with his sniper in Bad Batch, essentially a combination of the marksman coins and nail magnets. You may think that's redundant to give a noob-friendly version of the Ultra Rico shot, and to an extent I can absolutely agree, if not for the potential to use the feedback arm to punch the bolts back at a nearby enemy, or using the Knuckle Blaster shockwave thing to make the screwdriver dart into a lawn dart, going high into the air before falling down on top of a Serb's head. Unfortunately, I don't have an idea of how this would work with the malicious mod, or be any better than just aiming at the enemy, so I guess we're shit out of luck there. But these are the two most creative ideas I can think of for how to replace the lame zoom feature on the rail cannon. Obviously there's other methods like maybe weaker, less accurate shots and such, but I want to see something like that the least when the other alt fires are so much more interesting, or at the very least useful. Ultimately, this isn't the end of the world if we're stuck with this staying in the game, and who knows, perhaps Hikita has something in store for us where the zoom would be useful. My only hope with that is that he isn't going to use this zoom for a Metal Gear style sniper boss, because it doesn't matter how fappable he tries to make the boss or how good the music is, a sniper boss fight would be terrible for a game like Ultrakill. Even if it does happen in a stylish arena with a laser sight that comes on before certain shots, it just wouldn't mesh well with the health mechanics nor be that intuitive of a fight. Not when you can dash around their hit scan attacks and then give them a mouthful of the malicious mod, coin shot, wire snatch them off a cliff or into the barrel of your shotguns, or whatever else you want to do. A sniper boss just wouldn't work. But yeah, that's my pitch for what I'd change about Ultrakill if I were given the power to do anything. It goes without saying that I don't know how complicated this would be to pull off or program, or how this could affect smaller aspects of the game. I'm just a dipshit on YouTube who loves this game. But what do you all think? What's something you'd want to see in Ultrakill either as an improvement or a new feature? I'm stoked for the Wrath update and everything else in store with this game. And I just gotta reiterate, it's only half finished at most. This game is that fucking good. Anywho, thank you to all those who listened to this little ramble of mine. I did this mostly to be a vocal warm-up for my next bigger project. And, yeah, I'm gonna need it, because the next one's a chonker. But until that next video, I'll talk to y'all later.